Hi, I'm Courtney Ross. I'm a VA-accredited attorney here at Green & Maruzak.
And my name is Vittoria Marini. I'm a VA-Accredited claims agent here at Green & Maruzak.
Today we're going to talk about sleep apnea. So sleep apnea, specifically obstructive sleep apnea, is a condition that affects a significant number of veterans. People who suffer from obstructive sleep apnea repeatedly start and stop breathing while they sleep. Basically, their throat muscles relax and it blocks their airways. So it's a significant condition to be suffering from. Now, if a veteran does have a diagnosis of obstructive sleep apnea, it's possible that they may be entitled to VA compensation disability benefits. So Vittoria, I'm going to turn to you if you could tell us a little bit about possible theories that may work for service-connecting sleep apnea.
Yeah, there are a few ways that you can be service-connected for sleep apnea. One of the ones that we see is direct service connection, so relating that sleep apnea to an onset in service. For that, we would need those three elements of service connection. We need to have that diagnosis of the sleep apnea from a medical professional, some sort of onset in service, and a nexus linking the two. That is the most common, and there are some ways that we could develop for it in terms of evidence that would support that sort of claim. One of the most common and helpful pieces of evidence would be, say, a buddy statement from someone that knew you in service that could attest to either the onset of snoring in service or stopping and starting breathing during sleep.
Right, symptoms that they might have been able to observe while they knew you in service. And one thing to mention that's important for a diagnosis of sleep apnea is that VA actually requires the diagnosis be confirmed by a sleep study. So that needs to be something you can provide to VA or something that's already in your record confirming that diagnosis if VA is going to grant service connection.
Absolutely.
And as far as the medical nexus, can you just explain what that means? So let's say a veteran has a diagnosis of sleep apnea confirmed by a sleep study. They were able to get these buddy statements detailing what they observed in service as far as the veteran's symptoms, like snoring, as you mentioned. So what's a medical nexus exactly that they would need?
So a medical nexus is the key link that would link the two, and it's a medical opinion by a qualified medical professional who can attest to the fact that the same sleep issues that you started having in service are the same exact issue that you're currently diagnosed for now. And that does need to be coming from a medical professional.
Okay, great. So we talked about direct service connection. Are there other theories you've seen work as far as getting sleep apnea service connected?
Yes. So just like other types of service connection claims, there are other types of theories that we could look for in order to get sleep apnea service connected. One of the other common ones that we do see successfully are secondary service connection claims. So even if your sleep apnea didn't have its onset in service necessarily, it might have been caused by another condition that was service connected. But the key element of that is that primary disability has to already be service connected to get that secondary service connection granted.
And some examples of that we've seen include sleep apnea secondary to PTSD, sleep apnea secondary to sinusitis is one that I've seen be successful. Diabetes type 2 is actually another primary service-connected disability that I've seen VA link to, or rather sleep apnea be linked to the diabetes. One other thing that we often see with sleep apnea, certainly when VA sends veterans to go to exams, is oftentimes the VA examiners will attribute the condition to the veteran's obesity. Is there a way that we can use that in our favor if we were trying to establish service connection for a veteran?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of veterans that have had PTSD might be able to relate to weight gain as a symptom of some of their mental health struggles. So if you have gained weight and you've crossed over into that point where you are medically considered obese, that obesity could have caused the sleep apnea. There is a causal link coming from that original service-connected disability of PTSD. So kind of just with this type of a theory and the secondary service-connected disabilities that you talked about, like the PTSD itself and also the diabetes, the key thing is getting the nexus. So if that was your theory that you were going to go for, we would just need that medical evidence from a professional that could state that in your specific case, that's where it's coming from.
Right. Okay. So obesity kind of acts as an intermediate step between the primary disability and the sleep apnea. Even something, a scenario where a veteran is service connected for a lot of orthopedic conditions, and maybe they're unable to be exercise or really engage in any type of physical activity. And so that leads to weight gain as well. That's another angle to think about when you're thinking about secondary service connection. VA will not pay disability benefits for obesity itself, but the law does allow you to use it as that intermediate step.
Yes. And one of the key elements too as well is that the veteran has to be considered clinically obese, which is a BMI of 30 or greater.
Okay. So let's assume a veteran is successful in getting sleep apnea service connected. VA will rate the condition. Can you talk a little bit about how they rate it and what's usually the most common rating that you see?
Yeah, so as we know, VA assigns a percentage based off of certain signs or symptoms that a veteran might demonstrate. 0%, of course, being asymptomatic, and then going all the way up the rating scale. The most common rating that we see is a 50% for sleep apnea. And usually that's granted in the cases where a veteran has the use of a CPAP machine. So if that's you, if you use a CPAP machine and you're granted service connection, chances are that would be the correct rating for you.
Okay. So I think one general takeaway too is that each sleep apnea case is different, and the facts of these cases in particular are really important for what theory is going to be the most feasible. So that's a general overview of sleep apnea, potential theories, and how it's rated. If you have questions or would like more information, feel free to reach out to us here at Green & Maruzak.